I thought I knew what betrayal felt like when my husband passed away 5 years ago, leaving me alone in our quiet apartment. I thought I understood fear when the doctor told me about my heart condition last spring. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment my boss pressed a manila envelope into my trembling hands and told me I had 24 hours to disappear. Because when I opened that envelope, I discovered that the company I'd served faithfully for 22 years had marked me for death, and the life I'd so carefully built was about to crumble like ash. This is a story filled with truth, betrayal, love, and redemption. Each story touches the soul and reveals what really happens behind closed doors. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing to Grandma True Stories. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when everything changed. I remember because Tuesdays were always audit review days at Hartwell Financial Group, and I'd been a senior compliance officer there for so long that Tuesdays had their own particular rhythm. Coffee at 7:30, team meeting at 8. Then hours of reviewing transaction reports in my small office on the 14th floor. My name is Margaret Chen, but everyone calls me Maggie. At 68 years old, I'd spent the better part of my adult life making sure numbers added up correctly, that regulations were followed, that clients' money was protected. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest work. And after my husband James passed, it gave me purpose, structure, a reason to get up in the morning. That Tuesday started like any other. I rode the subway from my apartment in Queens, picked up my usual tea from the cart on the corner of Madison Avenue, and took the elevator up to the 14th floor. The office was already buzzing with activity, younger analysts rushing between cubicles, phones ringing, the constant hum of a financial firm in motion. "Morning, Maggie," called out Sarah from accounting. She was 26, bright-eyed, always had a smile. "Good morning, dear," I replied, settling into my desk chair with a small groan. My knees weren't what they used to be. I was 3 months away from retirement. 3 months from finally taking that trip to see the Grand Canyon that James and I had always planned. 3 months from spending more time with my grandchildren in California. I'd already started boxing up personal items, the photo of James and me at Niagara Falls, the little jade plant my daughter had given me, the world's best grandma mug. The morning passed in its usual way. I reviewed quarterly compliance reports, flagged a few transactions that seemed slightly irregular, nothing major, just some wire transfers that didn't quite match the client profiles. It was routine work, tedious even. At 11:30, my desk phone rang. "Maggie, can you come to my office for a moment?" It was David Rosen, my direct supervisor. We'd worked together for 15 years. He'd been at my husband's funeral, had brought me soup when I had the flu last winter. David was more than a boss, he was a friend. "Of course," I said. "Give me 2 minutes." I gathered my notebook and headed down the corridor to David's corner office. The door was closed, which was unusual. David believed in an open-door policy. Through the frosted glass, I could see his silhouette hunched over his desk. I knocked softly. "Come in, Maggie. Close the door behind you." The tone of his voice made my stomach tighten. Something was wrong. When I stepped inside, I barely recognized the man sitting before me. David looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His normally neat hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, and there were dark circles under his eyes. His hands were trembling as he shuffled papers on his desk. "David, what's wrong? Are you feeling all right?" He looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. "Sit down, Maggie." "Please." I sat in the leather chair across from his desk, my heart beginning to pound. "You're scaring me." David stood up, walked to the door, and checked the hallway. Then he pulled the blinds on his office windows, something I'd never seen him do in all our years working together. When he returned to his desk, he opened a drawer and pulled out a large manila envelope. It was thick, bulging with contents. He didn't hand it to me, not yet. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Maggie, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't ask questions right now. Don't react. Just listen." I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. "Do you remember those transactions you flagged this morning? The wire transfers?" "Yes, but they were minor." "They weren't minor." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Maggie, you've stumbled onto something? Something big, something dangerous." My hands gripped the armrests of the chair. "David, what are you talking about?" He slid the envelope across the desk toward me, but kept his hand on top of it. "Don't open this here," he said, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that frightened me. "Go home. Pack a bag. Essential items only, medications, documents, some clothes. Pack a bag." "David, I don't understand. You have 24 hours, Maggie." His voice cracked slightly. "Maybe less." I stared at him, certain I must have misheard. 24 hours for what? He leaned even closer, and I could smell the coffee on his breath mixed with something else. The sour scent of fear. To disappear. The word hung in the air between us like a physical thing. Disappear. It was absurd. Impossible. This was Manhattan, not some spy thriller. I was a compliance officer, for heaven's sake, not a secret agent. "David, you're not making any sense. I can't just disappear. I have responsibilities. My daughter is expecting me to babysit this weekend. I have a doctor's appointment on Thursday. Maggie." He grabbed my hand, squeezed it so hard it hurt. "Listen to me. I know this sounds insane. I know you don't understand, but I need you to trust me. I've known you for 15 years. Have I ever lied to you?" I shook my head slowly. "No." "Then trust me now. Take this envelope. Don't open it here. Wait until you're home alone, with the door locked. Read everything inside. Follow the instructions exactly. And Maggie," his voice dropped to barely a whisper, "don't trust anyone at this company. Not HR, not security, not even people you think are your friends." "What about you?" I asked, my voice small. A sad smile crossed his face. "I'm already compromised. They know I know. But they don't know that I've told you. Yet." "Who are they?" My voice was rising, panic setting in. "David." "What is happening?" He stood up, pulling me gently to my feet, pressing the envelope into my hands. It was heavier than I expected. "Go now. Act normal. Tell Sarah you're not feeling well and you're going home early. Take the subway like usual. Don't take a car service. They might be tracking those. When you get home, lock your door, read everything, and then decide." "Decide what?" "Whether you want to live long enough to enjoy your retirement." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled backward, clutching the envelope to my chest. My reflection in David's window showed a small, elderly woman with gray hair and wide, frightened eyes. I looked fragile, vulnerable. "I don't understand," I whispered. "I've done nothing wrong. I know, Maggie. I know. That's what makes this so terrible." David walked to the door, opened it, and checked the hallway again. Then he turned back to me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you better. But please, promise me you'll read everything. Promise me you'll be careful." I nodded mutely, unable to form words. "And Maggie." He touched my shoulder gently. "Don't try to contact me after today. It's not safe, for either of us." I walked out of his office in a daze, the envelope tucked under my arm, pressed against my side beneath my cardigan. The hallway seemed longer than usual, the fluorescent lights too bright, too harsh. Sarah waved at me from her desk, but I barely registered it. At my own office, I gathered my purse with shaking hands. I didn't pack anything else. The picture of James, the jade plant, the mug, they all stayed on my desk, remnants of a life that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. "Maggie, you okay?" It was Tom from accounts. Friendly Tom, who always remembered my birthday. "Just not feeling well," I managed to say. "Going home early. Feel better." He called after me. The elevator ride down felt endless. The lobby, usually so familiar, seemed full of watching eyes. The security guard at the front desk? Had he always looked at me that way? The woman in the sharp suit by the marble columns, was she talking into an earpiece? I made myself walk at a normal pace. "Don't run," I told myself. "Don't draw attention." The September air hit my face when I pushed through the revolving doors, and I gasped like I'd been underwater. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold onto the envelope. I clutched my purse, felt for my subway card, and headed toward the station. The ride home was a blur. I sat in the orange plastic seat, the envelope on my lap beneath my purse, and watched Queens scroll past the windows. Familiar buildings, familiar streets, but everything looked different now. Sinister, every person who glanced my way might be a threat. Every stranger who stood too close might be watching me. When I finally reached my apartment building, a modest 6-story walk up I'd lived in for 30 years, I practically ran up the stairs. My heart was pounding, and not just from the exertion. At 68, with my heart condition, I should have taken the stairs more slowly. But fear overrode caution. I fumbled with my keys at the apartment door, dropped them once. Finally got the door open. I stepped inside, locked the deadbolt, latched the chain, and leaned against the door, breathing hard. My apartment looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. The breakfast dishes in the sink, James's reading chair by the window, the Afghan my grandmother had crocheted draped over the sofa. Everything normal, everything safe, but nothing felt safe anymore. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water with trembling hands, and sat down at the small dining table. The manila envelope sat in front of me like a coiled snake. "Don't open this here," David had said. But I was home now, I was alone. The door was locked. I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside were several items, and as I pulled each one out, my confusion turned to cold, creeping horror. First, a burner cell phone still in its packaging. Second, a thick stack of papers, printed emails, bank statements, transaction records. Third, 2 USB drives, labeled simply Evidence 1 and Evidence 2. Fourth, a handwritten note in David's cramped handwriting. And fifth, my hands froze when I saw it, $5,000 in cash, bundled in $50 bills. I picked up David's note with shaking fingers and began to read. "Maggie, if you're reading this, you've made it home safely. Good. Now you need to understand what's happening, and you need to understand it quickly. The transactions you flagged this morning weren't random irregularities. They're part of a systematic embezzlement scheme that's been running through Hartwell Financial for at least 5 years. Victor Hartwell Jr. and several executives have been stealing from client accounts, specifically from elderly clients with large retirement portfolios. They've stolen over $40 million. You weren't supposed to see those transactions. They're usually routed through different channels that bypass compliance review. But there was a system update last week, and some files got moved into the wrong directories. You caught them by accident. Victor found out this morning that you'd flagged those transactions. I was in the executive meeting when he asked about it. Maggie, the look on his face. I knew immediately you were in danger. I've been collecting evidence for 6 months. I discovered the fraud by accident too, and I've been trying to figure out what to do. I was too scared to go to the authorities because I didn't know how deep it went, who else was involved, but I couldn't do nothing. So I started documenting everything. The USB drives contain copies of all the evidence I've gathered. Bank records, forged authorization forms, emails between Victor and his accomplices. It's all there. There's a list in the documents. I found it on Victor's computer. It's a list of problems that need to be resolved. Your name was just added to it this morning, Maggie. There are 4 other names on that list. All of them are people who discovered or got close to discovering the fraud. None of those people work at Hartwell anymore, and not because they quit. I don't know exactly what Victor has planned for you, but I overheard him on the phone this afternoon making arrangements for a discreet solution. He said your name. He said, by tomorrow night. That's why you have 24 hours. The cash is everything I could pull from my accounts today without raising suspicion. Use it to disappear while you figure out your next move. The burner phone has 1 number programmed in, a contact at the FBI I've been trying to work up the courage to call. His name is Agent Morris. He specializes in financial crimes. You have 3 choices now. 1, run, take the money, leave the city, change your name, and try to build a new life somewhere else. I won't blame you if you choose this. 2, go to the FBI with the evidence, but be warned, I don't know who might be compromised. Victor has connections everywhere. 3, do nothing. Pretend this never happened and hope they don't come for you. But Maggie, I don't think that's a real option anymore. You know too much now. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to act sooner. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. You've been a good friend to me, Maggie. You deserve to retire in peace. Whatever you choose to do, be careful, trust no one, and please don't try to contact me. They're watching me now too. You're stronger than you think you are. I've seen it in you for years. You're going to get through this. David, I read the letter 3 times, each time hoping I'd misunderstood, that it was some kind of horrible joke. But the evidence spread across my kitchen table told me it was all terrifyingly real. With trembling hands, I opened one of the USB drives on my laptop. File after file appeared. Spreadsheets showing systematic withdrawals from accounts belonging to people with names like Ethel Morrison, age 79, and Robert Chang, age 82. My hands clenched into fists as I scrolled through the documents. These weren't just numbers. These were people's lives, their retirement savings, their security, everything they'd worked for, stolen by men in expensive suits who smiled and shook their hands while robbing them blind. Then I found the list David had mentioned. It was a simple Excel spreadsheet titled Resolutions. 5 names, Michael Torres, resolved 30/15/23-2 Jennifer Park, resolved 7/23 Raymond Walsh, resolved 11/08/23-4 Susan Bradley, resolved 2/4/24-5 Margaret Chen, resolution scheduled 9/27/24. Today was September 26th. My resolution was scheduled for tomorrow. I sat back in my chair, the laptop screen blurring as tears filled my eyes. This couldn't be happening, not to me. I was nobody special. I was just a grandmother who liked crossword puzzles and made pot roast on Sundays. I wasn't brave or clever or strong. But as I looked around my small apartment, at James's chair, at the photos of my daughter and grandchildren on the wall, at the life I'd built here over decades, I felt something shift inside me. These people had stolen from the elderly, from people like me, people who'd worked their whole lives, saved carefully, trusted the wrong institutions. And when anyone got in their way, they simply erased them, resolved them. I thought about David's letter, his 3 choices: run, report, or surrender. But as the late afternoon sun slanted through my kitchen window, casting long shadows across the evidence spread before me, I realized there might be a 4th option. I'd spent 22 years making sure numbers added up correctly. I knew Hartwell financial systems better than almost anyone. I knew the protocols, the security measures, the blind spots. If I was going to go down, maybe I could take them with me. I picked up the burner phone, turning it over in my hands. Not yet. First, I needed to think, to plan, to decide if a 68-year-old woman with a heart condition had any business trying to take down a corrupt CEO and his network of criminals. But as darkness fell outside my window and the city lights began to twinkle across Queens, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not since James died. Not since I'd accepted that my life was winding down into a quiet retirement. I felt necessary, needed, angry, and underneath the fear that still made my hands shake, I felt the first stirrings of something that might have been courage. The envelope had changed everything. In 24 hours, they expected me to be resolved. But Margaret Chen wasn't ready to be resolved just yet. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the old building made me jump. Every set of footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment sent my heart racing. I sat in James's chair by the window, watching the street below. The evidence scattered across my coffee table like pieces of a terrible puzzle. At 2 in the morning, I made myself a cup of chamomile tea with hands that still hadn't stopped shaking. The steam rose in the lamplight, and I thought about the other names on that list: Michael Torres, Jennifer Park, Raymond Walsh, Susan Bradley. I'd known Susan Bradley. We'd worked together briefly in 2022 before she transferred to the Boston office. She was 53, had 2 teenage boys, loved to show pictures of them at lunch. In February, I'd heard she died in a car accident, single-vehicle collision on an icy road. So tragic, everyone had said, so sudden. Now I wondered if it had really been an accident at all. The thought made my tea taste like ashes. I pulled my laptop closer and started searching for the other names. It took time. I wasn't very good with computers, not like young people today, but eventually I found them. Michael Torres died in March 2023 from an apparent heart attack while jogging. He was 47 years old and had no history of heart disease. Jennifer Park fell from her apartment balcony in July 2023. Police ruled it an accident, though neighbors reported she was afraid of heights and never went on her balcony. Raymond Walsh fatal mugging in November 2023. Wallet and phone stolen, case unsolved. 4 people dead. 4 people who'd worked at Hartwell Financial. 4 people who I now realized had probably discovered what I'd discovered. And I was number 5. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark window. An old woman looked back at me, gray hair, lined face, reading glasses perched on my nose. I looked like someone's grandmother because I was someone's grandmother. I looked harmless, invisible. Maybe that could be an advantage. I thought about what David had written. 3 choices: run, report, or surrender. But running meant leaving everything behind. My apartment, my daughter, my grandchildren, my entire life. It meant dying a different kind of death, a slow one, alone and in hiding. Reporting to the FBI was risky. David was right. Victor had connections everywhere. What if the FBI was compromised? What if I walked into a field office and never walked out? And surrender wasn't really an option at all. So I sat in that chair, watching the night give way to a gray dawn, and I thought about a 4th choice. Not running, not just reporting, but fighting back. Using what I knew, what I'd learned over 22 years to bring down Victor Hartwell and everyone involved in this scheme. It was crazy. I was 68 years old with a heart condition and arthritis in my knees. What did I know about taking down criminals? But then again, what did they expect from me? An old woman. Months from retirement, scared and alone. They expected me to run or to die quietly. Maybe that was exactly why I had a chance. By the time the sun rose properly over Queens, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I'd made my decision. I was going to fight. But I was going to be smart about it. First, I needed to secure the evidence. I couldn't keep it all here in my apartment. Too risky. I needed copies, backups, insurance. I spent the morning at a FedEx store, printing out hard copies of the most damning documents and making multiple copies of the USB drives. My hands were steadier now that I had a plan. Purpose had a way of steadying the nerves. Big project? The young man behind the counter asked cheerfully as the printer churned out page after page. Just organizing some old files, I said with a smile. You know how it is, trying to get everything in order before I retire. My grandma did the same thing last year, he said. Took her 6 months. I paid in cash and left with 3 manila envelopes, each containing complete sets of evidence. One would stay with me. One would go to a safety deposit box at a bank across town, one I'd opened years ago that wasn't connected to Hartwell in any way, and one would go to someone I trusted. That was the hard part. Who could I trust? My daughter Rachel lived in California with her husband and 2 children. I couldn't drag her into this. Couldn't put my grandchildren at risk. Most of my friends were casual acquaintances, book club members, neighbors, people from church. No one I could burden with something this dangerous. Then I remembered Maria. Maria Gonzalez had been my cubicle neighbor for 10 years before she retired 3 years ago. She was 71 now, lived in the Bronx, and was the toughest person I'd ever met. She'd grown up in the South Bronx in the 60s, raised 3 kids on her own after her husband died young, and had opinions about everything. We'd stayed in touch, had lunch every few months. If anyone could handle this, it was Maria. I called her from the burner phone, my regular cell phone left behind in my apartment. I didn't trust it anymore. Hello. Her voice was suspicious. She didn't recognize the number. Maria, it's Maggie Chen. Maggie, why are you calling from a strange number? You in some kind of trouble? Leave it to Maria to cut right to it. Yes, I said simply. Can we meet somewhere public today? There was a pause. How much trouble we talking about? The kind where I might not live to see my retirement party. Another pause, longer this time. Then Sal's Diner in Astoria, 1 hour. And Maggie. Watch your back getting there. The relief that flooded through me nearly made my knees buckle. Thank you, Maria. Don't thank me yet. Just get here safe. I took 3 different subway lines to get to Sal's Diner, doubling back twice to make sure no one was following me. I felt ridiculous, like I was in some kind of spy movie. But every time I thought about Susan Bradley's car accident, the caution seemed justified. Sal's was an old-fashioned Greek diner with red vinyl booths and laminated menus that probably hadn't changed since 1985. Maria was already there, sitting in a back booth with a clear view of the entrance. She looked the same as always, steel gray hair pulled back in a bun, strong features, dark eyes that missed nothing. You look terrible, she said as I slid into the booth across from her. I feel terrible? Tell me. So I did. I told her everything, about the envelope, the evidence, the list, the 4 dead people, the 24 hours I supposedly had left. I kept my voice low, leaning across the table, and Maria listened without interrupting. Her expression never changed, but her coffee cup went still in her hands. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You got the evidence with you?" I nodded. "Show me." I pulled out one of the manila envelopes and slid it across the table. Maria put on reading glasses and went through the documents methodically, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she got to the list with the names, I saw her jaw tighten. "Susan Bradley," she murmured. "I remember her. Sweet girl. That wasn't an accident." "No, it wasn't." Maria closed the envelope and looked at me hard. "What are you planning to do?" "I need to get this to the FBI. But I don't trust just walking into a field office. I need to be careful. Make sure it gets to the right people. Make sure I have insurance in case something happens to me." "Smart." Maria tapped the envelope. "You made copies?" 3 sets. "This one is for you, if you'll take it. Keep it somewhere safe. If something happens to me, if I disappear or die suddenly, get it to the media. Every major news outlet you can think of." Maria studied my face. "You sure about this, Maggie? You could run. Take that money, get on a bus, start over somewhere. Florida maybe, Arizona. Somewhere warm where old ladies blend in. Let them get away with it. Let them keep stealing from people who work their whole lives. Let them keep killing anyone who gets in their way." I shook my head. "I can't, Maria. I've spent my whole life following the rules, playing it safe, not making waves. And where did that get me? They're still going to kill me. At least this way I go down fighting. A slow smile spread across Maria's face. There's the Maggie I always knew was hiding under all that politeness. Okay, I'm in. What do you need? Keep that envelope safe. If you don't hear from me in 48 hours, or if you hear that something happened to me, get it out there. And Maria? I reached across and squeezed her hand. Be careful. Don't let anyone know you have this. Don't tell anyone we met. Maggie, I survived the Bronx in the 70s. I can handle some corporate criminals. She squeezed back. But you be careful. These people play for keeps. I know. We sat there for a moment, two old women in a diner, holding hands across a scarred formica table. Then Maria pulled a pen from her purse and wrote something on a napkin. This is my nephew Carlos. He's a reporter for the New York Times. Investigative journalism. If you need someone in the media you can trust, he's your guy. I'll call him, tell him to expect to hear from you. Use the code word "sells special." He'll know it's really you. I took the napkin, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my pocket. Thank you. Go do what you gotta do. And Maggie, Maria's eyes were fierce. Give them hell. I left the diner feeling stronger than I had in 24 hours. I wasn't alone anymore. I had backup, had insurance. Now I needed to set the rest of my plan in motion. My next stop was a bank in Lower Manhattan, where I deposited the second envelope in my safety deposit box. The bank was old, traditional, with marble floors and brass fixtures. The woman who helped me was polite and incurious, which was exactly what I needed. With 2 copies of the evidence secured, I headed back to Queens. It was late afternoon now, and I had preparations to make. Back in my apartment, I packed a small overnight bag like David had instructed. Medications, a change of clothes, my identification papers, some cash. I packed James's wedding ring too. I'd been wearing it on a chain around my neck since he died. If I was going to do this, I wanted him with me. Then I sat down with the burner phone and the number David had given me. Agent Morris, FBI. Financial Crimes Division. My finger hovered over the call button. This was the point of no return. Once I made contact, there would be no going back to my quiet life, my comfortable retirement plans. Even if I survived this, everything would change. But then I thought about those names on the list. Susan with her 2 boys. Michael, who liked to jog. Jennifer, who was afraid of heights. Raymond, who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. I thought about the elderly clients whose life savings had been stolen. $40 million. Hundreds of lives destroyed. I pressed the call button. The phone rang 3 times before a man answered. Morris. Agent Morris, my name is Margaret Chen. I have information about a large-scale embezzlement operation at Hartwell Financial Group in Manhattan. Multiple people have been killed to cover it up. I have evidence. There was a brief pause. Ma'am, can you tell me how you got this number? From someone inside the company who's trying to protect me. I don't have much time. I'm on their list to be resolved by tonight. I need protection. And I need to know this evidence gets to someone who isn't compromised. Where are you right now? I'm safe for the moment. But I need guarantees before I come in. I need to know you're legitimate, that this isn't going to disappear into some file cabinet. Ms. Chen, I can assure you. With respect, Agent Morris, your assurances aren't enough. 4 people are dead. I need proof you're who you say you are, and I need a plan that keeps me alive long enough to testify. Another pause. Then, you're smart. Good. Give me a number where I can reach you. I'll call you back in 2 hours with verification. In the meantime, stay in a public place. Don't go home. Don't use your credit cards. Do you understand? I understand. 2 hours, Miss Chen. Stay safe. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone in my lap, and realized I was shaking again. But it was different this time, not the trembling of fear, but the trembling of adrenaline. Of action finally being taken. I couldn't go home. Agent Morris was right about that. But I couldn't just sit in a coffee shop for 2 hours either. I was too wired, too anxious. Then I remembered David's letter. He'd mentioned being watched, being compromised. What had happened to him? Was he safe? Or had they already resolved him too? I shouldn't contact him. He'd said as much. But I needed to know. I took my regular cell phone, the one I'd deliberately left behind, and powered it on. Immediately notifications started flooding in. Missed calls. Voicemails, text messages. Most were from work. Where are you? Are you okay? Please call us? But one was from a number I didn't recognize, sent at 11:47 this morning. The package has been delivered. The sender is safe but cannot receive mail. Forward all correspondence to the proper authorities. I stared at the message. It had to be from David. The package, the envelope, the sender himself. Cannot receive mail, can't be contacted. Forward to authorities, go to the FBI if he was alive. And he was telling me to move forward with the plan. I deleted the message immediately and powered off the phone. 2 hours. I had 2 hours to wait for Agent Morris to call back. I went to the public library on Queens Boulevard. It was crowded, anonymous, safe. I found a corner desk and sat down with a book I couldn't focus on, watching the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. At exactly 2 hours, the burner phone vibrated in my purse. Yes. This is Agent Morris. I'm going to give you some information to verify my identity. You can look it up on any computer. My badge number is 4782. I've been with the FBI for 12 years, assigned to the white-collar crime division for the past 7. There's a photo of me on the FBI website directory. Are you near a computer? I was. I pulled up the FBI website on one of the library computers and found his page. Agent Richard Morris. The photo showed a man in his 40s with short dark hair and a serious expression. I see you, I said. Good now. I've done some preliminary checking on Hartwell Financial Group. There's been some chatter about them for a while, but nothing concrete. If you have evidence of systematic fraud and possible homicides related to covering it up, we need to move carefully. This is bigger than one arrest. We need to build an airtight case. How do I know I can trust you? Honestly, you can't. Not completely. But Miss Chen, I've been doing this for a long time. I know how these things work. If you're telling the truth, and I believe you are, then you're in serious danger. The best protection you have right now is making sure that evidence goes public and that these people know they're being watched. Once that happens, killing you becomes more suspicious than letting you live. It made sense. Cold, calculated sense. What do you propose? Meet me tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Federal Plaza, main entrance. Come with the evidence. I'll have a team ready to take your statement and put you in protective custody if necessary. But Ms. Chen, don't come alone. Bring someone you trust. Someone who knows you're meeting me. Insurance. I've already taken care of that. Good. You're smarter than most people who stumble into these situations. That's going to keep you alive. He paused. Stay in public places tonight. Don't go home. Check into a hotel using cash, use a fake name. Can you do that? Yes. Then I'll see you tomorrow at 9. And Miss Chen, thank you for coming forward. What you're doing takes courage. After he hung up, I sat in the library for a long time thinking. Tomorrow at 9, Federal Plaza. It was really happening. I followed Agent Morris's advice. I checked into a small hotel in Midtown using cash and the name, Mary Williams. The room was tiny but clean, with a view of a brick wall. I ordered Chinese food delivery and ate it sitting on the bed, watching the news. There was nothing about Hartwell Financial. Nothing about David. Nothing about a 68-year-old compliance officer who'd stumbled onto a massive fraud. Not yet, anyway. As darkness fell outside my window, I thought about what tomorrow would bring. Walking into the FBI, giving my statement, starting the process that would either save my life or end it. I thought about James, about what he would have said. He'd always been the cautious one, the one who avoided conflict. But he'd also been a man of principle. He would have wanted me to do the right thing. I hope I'm doing the right thing, I whispered to his wedding ring, still on the chain around my neck. Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of people going about their evenings, unaware that one old woman in a cheap hotel room was about to try to take down a corrupt financial empire. I set an alarm for 6 a.m. and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, Margaret Chen would become either a hero or a cautionary tale. But either way, she wouldn't go down without a fight. I woke up at 5:47 a.m. 13 minutes before my alarm, my heart already racing. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back. The hotel room, the evidence, the meeting with Agent Morris in just over 3 hours. I showered and dressed carefully, choosing my most professional outfit, a navy blazer and gray slacks. If I was going to the FBI, I was going to look like someone they should take seriously, not some frightened old woman. But my hands shook as I buttoned my blouse. I couldn't stop thinking about what could go wrong. What if it was a trap? What if Victor had people inside the FBI? What if I walked into Federal Plaza and never walked out? I called Maria from the burner phone. "It's early, Maggie?" she answered. But her voice was alert. She'd been expecting this call. "I'm meeting with the FBI at 9, Federal Plaza. If you don't hear from me by noon, you know what to do. I'll be waiting by the phone. And Maggie, you've got this. You're tougher than you think." I hope she was right. At 8:30, I left the hotel. I'd paid cash the night before, so I just walked out, leaving nothing behind. The September morning was crisp and clear, the kind of day that usually filled me with energy. Today, it just made everything feel too sharp, too real. I took a taxi to Federal Plaza. I wasn't going to risk the subway, not today. The driver was a middle-aged man from Bangladesh who hummed along to the radio and didn't try to make conversation. Perfect. Federal Plaza loomed ahead, all concrete and glass and American flags. People streamed in and out, agents, staff, visitors, normal people doing normal things. None of them knew that one of the visitors was carrying evidence of murder and massive fraud. I paid the driver and stood on the sidewalk, clutching my purse with the USB drives inside. My backup envelope was still with Maria. My safety deposit box was secure. If something happened to me now, the evidence would still get out. That thought steadied me. I walked through the metal detectors, placed my purse on the conveyor belt, and stepped through. The security guard barely glanced at me. Just another old lady visiting a government building. I have a 9 a.m. appointment with Agent Richard Morris. I told the receptionist. She made a phone call, nodded, and handed me a visitor badge. Someone will be down to escort you shortly. Please have a seat. The waiting area had uncomfortable plastic chairs and outdated magazines. I sat down, my visitor badge clipped to my blazer, and watched the clock on the wall. 8:57, 8:59. At exactly 9, the elevator doors opened and a man stepped out. He matched the photo I'd seen on the website, short dark hair, serious expression, wearing a dark suit and tie. He scanned the waiting area and his eyes landed on me. Ms. Chen. I stood up. Agent Morris. He extended his hand and I shook it. His grip was firm, professional. Thank you for coming. If you'll follow me, we have an interview room prepared. We rode the elevator up in silence. I studied him from the corner of my eye. He looked tired, like he'd been up all night. Good. That meant he'd been taking this seriously. The interview room was exactly what you'd expect. A table, some chairs, a mirror that was probably two-way glass. A younger woman was already there, laptop open. This is Agent Sarah Wu, Morris said. She'll be assisting with your statement. Agent Wu smiled at me warmly. She looked to be in her 30s, with kind eyes. Please have a seat, Ms. Chen. Can we get you anything? Water? Coffee? Water would be nice, thank you. Once we were all settled, Agent Morris folded his hands on the table. Ms. Chen, before we begin, I want you to know that everything you tell us today will be kept confidential as part of an ongoing investigation. We take allegations of this nature very seriously. I also want you to know that we've already started looking into Hartwell Financial Group, based on what you told me yesterday. My eyes widened. That fast. When someone mentions 4 possible homicides connected to corporate fraud, we move quickly. He leaned forward slightly. No, I need you to tell us everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out, even if it seems minor. And I need to see the evidence you mentioned. So I told them. I started with Tuesday morning with the routine audit review. With flagging those transactions that seemed off. I told them about David's office, the envelope, the terrifying conversation. I described opening the envelope at home, reading David's letter, discovering the list with my name on it. Agent Wu typed rapidly as I spoke, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Agent Morris just listened, his expression never changing, but I could see his jaw tightening when I described the resolutions list. And you made copies of all this evidence, he asked. Yes, multiple copies, secured in different locations. One with a friend who has instructions to release it to the media if something happens to me. One in a safety deposit box. And I have one set with me. Smart, Agent Wu murmured. I pulled the USB drives from my purse and slid them across the table. Agent Morris picked them up carefully, handling them like they were made of glass. We'll need to examine these, make our own copies. This could take several hours. Are you comfortable waiting? Do I have a choice? A slight smile crossed his face. You always have choices, Miss Chen. But I'd recommend staying here, in protective custody, at least until we can assess the immediate threat level. If what you're saying is true, and I have no reason to doubt you, these people may already be looking for you. A chill ran down my spine. Do you think they know I'm here? It's possible. If they're monitoring your communications, your movements, we have to assume they're aware you've gone missing. The question is whether they know you've contacted us. He stood up. Agent Wu will stay with you. I'm going to get our tech team started on these drives immediately. After he left, Agent Wu offered me a sympathetic smile. I know this must be terrifying for you. Terrifying doesn't begin to cover it. I took a sip of water, my mouth suddenly dry. Can I ask you something? Of course. Those other names on the list, Michael Torres, Jennifer Park, Raymond Walsh, Susan Bradley. Will you investigate their deaths? We're already pulling the files. If they were murdered to cover up this fraud, we'll find the evidence. She paused. You did the right thing coming here, Miss Chen. A lot of people in your position would have just run. I thought about it, but these people, they stole from the elderly. From people like me who worked their whole lives and trusted the wrong people, and they killed anyone who got in their way. Someone had to stop them, and now someone will. Agent Wu's voice was firm. We will build a case, we will prosecute, and we will make sure justice is served. I wanted to believe her. But I'd learned in the past 48 hours that the world was more dangerous than I'd thought. The hours crawled by. Agent Wu brought me lunch from the cafeteria, a sandwich I barely tasted. Agent Morris came back periodically to ask follow-up questions, to show me documents from the USB drives, to verify names and dates. This is extensive, he said during one visit, his eyes serious. David Rosen did remarkable work documenting all this. Do you know where he is now? No. He told me not to contact him. Said it wasn't safe. We need to bring him in, get him into protective custody. He's a key witness. If he's still alive, I said quietly. Agent Morris met my eyes. We have to hope he is. By 3 in the afternoon, I was exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the morning had worn off, leaving me feeling every one of my 68 years. My back ached from the uncomfortable chair. My head throbbed. Agent Morris returned with a folder thick with papers. Ms. Chen, we've verified a significant portion of what you've told us. The documentation is solid. We're moving forward with a full investigation, and we'll be seeking warrants for Victor Hartwell and several other executives at the firm. Relief flooded through me. So you believe me? We believe the evidence. And yes, we believe you. He sat down across from me again. Now we need to talk about your safety. These people are dangerous. We can offer you protective custody, a safe house, new identity if necessary, until we can make arrests and build our case for trial. How long would that take? Weeks, possibly months. Financial fraud cases are complex. We need to trace every transaction, interview every witness, build an airtight case. Months. The word came out as almost a whisper. I can't just disappear for months. My daughter, my grandchildren? We can arrange supervised contact, but it would be limited. Miss Chen, I understand this is difficult, but these people have killed before. We have to assume you're still in danger. I thought about it. Thought about living in some anonymous safe house, cut off from my life, from everyone I loved. Thought about never going back to my apartment, never seeing Maria or Rachel or my grandchildren. But then I thought about Susan Bradley's 2 boys, growing up without their mother. Okay, I said finally. Protective custody. But I need to make some phone calls first, let people know I'm safe, that I haven't disappeared. We can arrange that. Supervise calls from a secure line. That evening, I called Rachel from a phone in Agent Morris's office. He stepped out to give me privacy, but I knew someone was monitoring the call. Mom! I've been trying to reach you. Your office said you went home sick yesterday, but you haven't been answering your phone. I was about to call the police. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm safe. But I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without panicking. I told her a simplified version, that I discovered fraud at work, that I'd gone to the FBI, that I needed to stay in protective custody for a while. I left out the parts about the murder list, about having 24 hours to live. No need to give her nightmares. Mom, this is crazy. This is like something from a movie. I know, honey, but I'm safe. The FBI is taking care of me. I just need you to know that I'm okay, and that I might not be able to call as often for a while. Can I come see you? Not right now. But soon, I hope. Give the kids a kiss for me. Tell them Grandma loves them. I love you too, Mom. Please be careful. I will. I promise. After I hung up, I sat there for a moment, fighting back tears. Agent Morris knocked softly and came back in. You okay? No. But I will be, he nodded. We're going to move you to a safe house tonight. Packlight will provide what you need. Agent Wu will accompany you. As I gathered my few belongings, I caught sight of my reflection in a window. I barely recognized myself. 2 days ago, I'd been a quiet compliance officer looking forward to retirement. Now I was a whistleblower in protective custody. The key witness in what Agent Morris said could be one of the biggest financial fraud cases in years. How had this become my life? But I knew the answer. I'd opened that envelope. I'd made a choice. And now I had to see it through. That night, Agent Wu drove me to a safe house in New Jersey, a nondescript two-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It looked like every other house on the block, which was probably the point. "You'll be safe here," Agent Wu assured me as she showed me around. "There's an agent on duty at all times. Groceries will be delivered. You have a phone that can only call specific numbers. And Ms. Chen, try to get some rest. You've been through a lot." After she left, I sat in the unfamiliar living room. In a house that wasn't mine, in a life I didn't recognize. Through the window, I could see normal people living normal lives, walking dogs, coming home from work, completely unaware that their quiet neighborhood was now harboring a fugitive from corporate criminals. I touched James's wedding ring on the chain around my neck. "I hope I did the right thing," I whispered. Somewhere in Manhattan, Victor Hartwell was probably realizing that his resolution of Margaret Chen hadn't gone as planned. Somewhere, David Rosen was in hiding, hoping I'd made it to safety. And somewhere in the FBI offices, agents were building a case that would bring down an empire built on fraud and murder. I'd started this fight. Now I had to trust others to finish it. But as I lay in the unfamiliar bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered that would I survive long enough to see justice served. Only time would tell. The first week in the safe house passed in a strange blur of boredom and anxiety. Days blended together in that anonymous suburban house with its beige walls and generic furniture. I watched morning shows I'd never had time for before. I read books from the small collection in the living room. I took walks around the backyard. Never the front, Agent Wu had warned, and tried not to think about how my entire life had been reduced to this small, controlled space. But at night, when the house was quiet and the agent on duty was downstairs, I lay awake and worried. About David. About whether Victor knew where I was. About whether the FBI was really making progress, or if I'd thrown my life away for nothing. Agent Morris visited every few days with updates. Each time, he looked more tired, more intense. "We've executed search warrants at Hartwell Financial," he told me during his third visit. Sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "Seized computers, files, everything. Victor Hartwell has lawyered up, of course, but we expected that. The evidence you and David provided has been crucial." "Have you found David?" I asked. It was always my first question. "Not yet, but we have indications he's alive and in hiding. We've been trying to reach him through back channels." He paused, studying my face. "Ms. Chen, I need to prepare you for something. This is going to get harder before it gets easier. Victor Hartwell is powerful. He has resources, connections. He's going to fight this with everything he has." "I'm not backing down," I said firmly. "I know, that's what worries me." He leaned forward. "We've intercepted some communications that suggest Hartwell's people are actively looking for you. They know you went to the FBI. They're scared, which makes them dangerous." A chill ran through me. How close have they gotten? Not close enough to worry about yet, but we're taking extra precautions. You might need to move to a different safe house soon. After he left, I sat at that kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. I'd known this would be difficult, but the reality of being hunted by people with resources and connections was terrifying in a way I hadn't fully grasped before. That night, I called Maria from the secure phone. I was allowed one call per week, always monitored, always brief. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm going crazy sitting here doing nothing. How are things out there? Has any of this hit the news yet?" "Nothing public yet, but there are rumors flying around. People at Hartwell are scared. Some of the old-timers have been calling me, asking if I know anything about what's going on. I'm playing dumb. Be careful, Maria. Always am. You just worry about yourself." "And Maggie, Rachel called me. She's worried about you." My heart clenched. "I talked to her last week, told her I was safe. She knows you're not telling her everything. She's your daughter, she can tell. But she understands you're trying to protect her. Just, when this is over, spend time with her. With your grandchildren. Life's too short." "I know. I will, I promise." After I hung up, I thought about Rachel, about my grandchildren. What kind of grandmother was I, anyway? One who'd gotten mixed up in corporate fraud and murder. One who was hiding in a safe house in New Jersey while criminals hunted her. But also one who was fighting back. One who refused to let the bad guys win. I had to believe that mattered. The second week brought a breakthrough. Agent Morris arrived with Agent Wu and a laptop, his expression almost eager. "We found something," he said, opening the laptop on the kitchen table. "One of the accounts in David's documentation caught our attention. It's an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, registered to a shell corporation." We traced the money flow, and Miss Chun. It connects to at least 30 different client accounts at Hartwell. All elderly clients, all with significant retirement savings. He showed me spreadsheets, transaction records, names and numbers that made my head spin. But I understood the basics. Victor and his accomplices had been systematically draining accounts for years, moving the money through a complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts. $42 million, Agent Wu said quietly. That's how much we've traced so far. And we're not done. I felt sick. $42 million stolen from people who'd worked their entire lives, people who'd trusted Hartwell Financial to protect their futures. Can you get it back? I asked. The money, some of it, maybe even most of it if we move fast enough. Asset forfeiture laws are complex, but we have a good case. Agent Morris closed the laptop. But here's the thing, Miss Chen. To make this case airtight, we need more than documents and transactions. We need testimony from people on the inside. We need David Rosen. And ideally, we need someone who's willing to flip. One of Victor's accomplices who'll testify against him in exchange for a lighter sentence. Have you identified the accomplices? 3 so far. Victor's CFO, the head of their private wealth management division, and a senior account manager. We're building cases against all of them. But Victor's the mastermind. He's the one we really want. Over the next few days, I worked with Agents Morris and Wu, going through every detail of Hartwell's operations that I could remember. They recorded hours of testimony, asked hundreds of questions, had me explain compliance procedures and security protocols until my head ached. You're invaluable to this case, Agent Wu told me one evening. Your institutional knowledge, your understanding of how the systems work, it's helping us connect dots we wouldn't have connected otherwise. I just want this to be over, I admitted. I want to go home, I know, and you will, I promise. But promises felt hollow when I was locked in a safe house, when my life was on hold, when dangerous people were hunting me. The third week brought unexpected news. Agent Morris arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 weeks after David had handed me that envelope. His expression was serious, but there was something else there too, hope maybe. We found David Rosen. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee. Is he alive? Is he okay? He's alive. He's been hiding in upstate New York, staying with a cousin. We brought him in last night, and he's agreed to testify. He's in protective custody now, like you. Relief flooded through me so powerfully that my knees went weak. Thank God. Can I talk to him? Not directly. Not yet, but I can pass along a message if you'd like. Tell him thank you. Tell him he saved my life. I will. Agent Morris sat down at the table, and I joined him. David's testimony, combined with yours and the documentary evidence, gives us a very strong case, but there's something else. One of Victor's accomplices, the CFO, Thomas Bradley, has indicated he might be willing to cooperate. Bradley. The name sounded familiar. Wet. Is he related to Susan Bradley? Agent Morris's expression darkened. His wife. Susan Bradley was his wife. The room seemed to tilt. Susan, the woman I'd worked with, the mother of 2 boys, had been married to one of Victor's accomplices, and she'd died in that car accident 6 months ago. Did he? I couldn't finish the sentence. We don't know yet, but we're looking at Susan's death very carefully now. If Thomas Bradley helped cover up his own wife's murder, or worse, was involved in it. He shook his head. Let's just say he has a strong motivation to cooperate. He's scared, he's guilty, and he's starting to realize he could spend the rest of his life in prison if he doesn't help us. Will you make a deal with him? After what he did? After Susan? That's not my decision. But yes, probably, because his testimony could help us put Victor Hartwell away for the rest of his life. Sometimes you have to make deals with devils to catch bigger devils. I hated it. Hated the idea of Susan's husband getting a lighter sentence. But I understood the calculus. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. About stopping Victor before he could hurt anyone else. When will you arrest him? Victor? Soon. We're coordinating with the U.S. Attorney's Office. We want every charge to stick, every piece of evidence to be airtight. But soon, Miss Chen. Soon. That night, for the first time in 3 weeks, I slept soundly. David was safe. The case was strong. The end was in sight. But I should have known better. I should have remembered that powerful men don't go down without a fight. The call came at 20:17 in the morning. I woke to the sound of footsteps thundering up the stairs, voices shouting. The agent on duty was at my door in seconds. Ms. Chen, we need to move you. Now, what's happening? Someone leaked your location. We have reports of suspicious vehicles in the area. We need to evacuate immediately. My heart hammered as I threw on clothes, grabbed my bag. Always packed, always ready, just in case. The agent, a young man named Rodriguez, hustled me down the stairs and out the back door to a waiting SUV. Another agent was already in the driver's seat, engine running. We peeled out of the driveway, and I looked back to see the safe house, my home for 3 weeks, receding into the darkness. Had I imagined the shadow of a car turning onto the street behind us? "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Different safe house. Upper Manhattan this time. Don't worry, Miss Chen. We've got you." But I was worried. Someone had leaked my location. Someone on the inside, someone who knew where I was, had told Victor's people. The FBI had a mole. The new safe house was an apartment building in Washington Heights, 3rd floor, with bars on the windows and a double locked door. It felt less like a home and more like a prison, but I was too shaken to complain. Agent Morris arrived at dawn, looking furious. "We're investigating the leak," he told me. It could have been any number of people, administrative staff, other agents, even someone who saw paperwork they shouldn't have seen. "But Ms. Chen, I need you to know we will find out who did this, and they will be prosecuted." How close did they get? Close enough that we're taking this extremely seriously. We've increased your security detail. You'll have 2 agents with you at all times now. And we're accelerating our timeline. We're going to arrest Victor Hartwell tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. We were going to wait another week, build the case even stronger. But we can't risk waiting anymore. You're in danger, David's in danger, and we have enough to make the charges stick. It's time to move. The next morning, I sat in that Washington Heights apartment, 2 agents nearby watching the clock. Agent Morris had promised to call as soon as the arrest was made. I'd poured myself coffee I didn't drink. I'd tried to read a book but couldn't focus on the words. I'd paced until one of the agents, a kind woman named Chen, no relation, suggested I sit down before I wore a hole in the floor. At 9:47 a.m., the secure phone rang. "It's done," Agent Morris said. "Victor Hartwell was arrested at his home in Greenwich at 6:00 a.m. this morning. We've also arrested the CFO, the head of wealth management, and the senior account manager. All 4 are in custody. It's over, Miss Chen." I sat down hard on the sofa, my hand pressed to my chest. "It's really over. The arrests are done. There will be arraignments, trials, months of legal proceedings. You'll need to testify. But the immediate danger is over. Victor Hartwell is going to spend the rest of his life in prison." Tears streamed down my face. Tears of relief, of exhaustion, of grief for everything I'd lost and everything I'd survived. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for believing me. You did this, Miss Chen. You had the courage to come forward. You had the evidence. You made this happen." After I hung up, I just sat there crying, while Agent Chen tactfully pretended not to notice. 4 weeks ago, I'd been a quiet compliance officer looking forward to retirement. Now I was the whistleblower who'd brought down one of New York's most prominent financial executives. The news broke that afternoon. Every channel, every website, every newspaper. Massive fraud ring exposed at Hartwell Financial Group. CEO arrested in $42 million embezzlement scheme. Whistleblower uncovers years of systematic theft. They didn't name me, not yet. I was referred to only as a longtime employee who discovered irregularities. But I knew that wouldn't last forever. Eventually, my name would come out. Eventually, I'd have to face the world as the person who'd blown the whistle. But for now, sitting in that safe house with the late afternoon sun slanting through the barred windows, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in 4 weeks: hope. David was safe. Victor was arrested. The evidence was solid. Justice was coming. I touched James's wedding ring on the chain around my neck. "We did it," I whispered. "I know you'd say I was crazy for getting involved, but we did it." That evening, Agent Morris visited one more time. "You can go home in a few days," he said. "We need to do some security assessments first, make sure there are no lingering threats." "But Victor's in custody. His assets are frozen, and his network is falling apart. You're safe, Miss Chen. When will I have to testify?" "Probably not for several months. These cases take time. But when the time comes, you'll do great. I have no doubt about that." After he left, I stood at the window, looking out at the city lights of Manhattan in the distance. Somewhere out there was my apartment in Queens, my quiet life, my familiar routines. Could I ever go back to that? Could I ever be that person again? No, I realized. I couldn't. That Maggie Chen was gone, the woman who avoided conflict, who played it safe, who never made waves. The new Maggie Chen had stared down corporate criminals, had risked her life for what was right, had brought down an empire built on theft and murder. I didn't know who that woman was yet. But I was going to find out, and maybe, just maybe, that was okay.